Right, that's enough of the news. We're going to go into some Q&A before we have a music break, I think. Yeah. Let's see what we've got here. Who has control over chemtrails and 5G rollout? Chemtrails is military, rogue elements, certainly being ran by rogue elements. And 5G is the brainchild of the multi-billionaires. And it's not a millionaire's game, and it's not a government's game. It's multi-billionaire. Everything you need to know about 5G was in Clowns in Panic. Forget frequencies and all that nonsense. I've showed that to be pure folly. I'm not saying by any stretch of the imagination it's great. It's not. But it's not. We're all going to die either. The chemtrails have reduced drastically. Reports even from our own group have stated that in America and certain other countries. Eventually it will run out. Eventually. Thomas, you mentioned that only thousands will survive what is coming. This seems very bleak future for those who don't make it. Are you basing this possibility on humanity not altering its current course due to a lack of awareness and unwillingness to take responsibility? It's not a given. People have the ability to change the future. We've mentioned this many, many times in our shows. People have the ability to change weather. Yet do people use that ability? No. And therein lies the problem. There's a general apathy. There's always somebody else who's going to fix it, and not you. And that is why the figures are not that high. I would love it to be much higher. But you've all seen the evidence yourself. You don't need me to tell you how people are not responding, how people are acting poorly, how they're not focusing on what matters. And this has been a common theme about humanity in previous timelines and epochs. But, like I said, it's not a given. People have an opportunity to turn that round. What concerns me and others is that after 7 years, whilst there's been a massive increase, it still hasn't broken viral. And we can make a lot of excuses over that, but there really, when it boils down to the brass tacks, there is none. Yes, there's fun and games, and maybe what I mentioned earlier is more than a strong probability, not a possibility. So are we close to the 15%? I would say pretty much. Are we headed into a much more dangerous time due to the looming global financial reset? There is no financial reset. That's GCR. That's a load of nonsense. There could be a change in how finance is operated, where it's asset-based rather than debt-based, providing certain people do their job, but we wait. And maybe, just maybe, there's, for want of a better term, a divine time for that. I don't think that time is too long away. The true battle between good and evil hitting the mainstream consciousness, it already has. They've ignored it. They ignore lots of things. How long before these clowns are totally bankrupt, so they can stop paying their minions to harm humans all over the planet? Well, you've seen the evidence of it, or you should have done. I assume we can expect for everything to crash: banks, grocery stores, electrical grids. It's no guarantee. There's no guarantee on that. I've not heard anything on how long this turnaround may take, months or years. We covered that in the show about less than a month ago. I want to be the next level down from you in teaching others about what has really gone on and what we've learned these past 9 years. What we really need to focus on now is standing our ground, retaining what we have, not focusing on waking others up. You know, it's fine if you wish to do that and expend vast quantities of your energy on people who really are not interested in saving themselves. There's no excuse whatsoever for any person to not know some of what you all know. None whatsoever. They've chosen to ignore it. This seems more daunting than trying to survive the collapse itself. It could be. How to wake the asleep. At this point, I don't believe you can. That's my opinion, and everyone's free to disagree with it. But if you look at the evidence, like I always say in overview, remember the piece about the events, 31 to 33 events that have already happened, and where is the shift? Are we seeing vast quantities of people suddenly caring about the planet, or caring about other people, or caring about animals? No, it's not changed. It's changed within the alt media community, but not outside. Do you and Kim have thoughts on how to go about this? Why do me and Kim always have to provide answers? This is what this show is all about, is you coming to your own conclusions of what you can do, whatever that may be. Not taking mine or Kim's time up saying, how would you do this? This is what the THI state groups are all about, is people being responsible for themselves and their state. Not me. I thought it would be best to show them around the control structure document. We will get round to that one day, but all I can say is things are rather dicey out there at the moment to be focusing on show stuff. Have you any thoughts on how this will go down and come back up? Yeah, I've covered that in several shows. Will the military be on our side during this turnaround? Currently, no. We've had black helicopters flying above our house for a few years now, but we are also in the regular flight pattern. I do believe you stated that martial law failed to date. Trying to gather my peace of mind with what is to come and how can I best help those around me make it through. Well, like I said, all of those things I've covered in several shows, even in the past month. So, perhaps it got missed. I know the shows are fairly long, but if you're going to want to understand what's going on around the world, then you should take more notes. And you've also got the Patreon. You know, sometimes it's a lot to listen to through 3 hours of it, But the Patreon has the transcripts that takes out all the Q&A, that takes out all the news bits and some of the bits about clowns and alt media, and it has the sub-intel, the intel, and the op-ed pieces. They're all there. It's been there for the past 2 years, 2.5 years, I think. So that would help also. I was thinking that the common bond that already exists in America is the founding documents. We already have a foundation and structure. It seems we have a foundation that most Americans are familiar with in some way. They may be familiar with the documents, but the majority are not familiar that it's all fake. Those founding fathers were all British establishment. Do you think they're going to write something for the benefit of American people? No. They were all British Freemasons and involved in all kinds of other types of fraternal orders, shall we say. Hellfire Caves, long before Bohemian Grove. There's more than a few American presidents who are involved in that. So we need new documents written for and by the people, not for and by the system, be it the British Crown system or anybody else. That's the reality. The Constitution needs to be, the original organic Constitution needs to be brought back and also updated. What may have applied in 1871, which is the last time it was in operation, may not apply now in some circumstances. What if you had an enlightened nation who are knowledgeable to the laws of their land? Our issue in America is adhering to the laws that already exist. Well, there's a difference between legal and law. We're operating under legal and pirates, maritime law, pirates of the sea. There was a document posted that no one can own any land. Well, that is actually correct, because we're not knowledgeable on much. Too many people anyway. So there's a lot of the founding documents, the law documents, the organic constitution needs to be brought back, looked at and updated for and by the people, not for and by clowns or British Crown, in my opinion. I agree it's very important that we keep in mind there could be massive loss of jobs due to any monetary reset. It depends which one. If it goes ahead with the Bitcoin Libra, the job losses will be overwhelming. You're talking tens, if not hundreds of millions. Decentralization is a whole different ballgame, where everything will be ran by computer, ran by Amazon. Also, there are many technologies that have been held or weaponized. Can you tell us a little bit more about the technologies held back? No, because some of these could result in new jobs. For example, free energy could replace those that are working coal, oil and coal. How could this affect? Could affect how we plan for future education and business ideas within our state and country groups? No, it shouldn't. Your focus is jumping too many steps ahead, in my opinion. What can you change within your state? Can you come up with a project that's going to encompass all who are in that state group, where you all get jobs and working and pay in that project? New technologies shouldn't come into it. You can only work with what you've got now. New technologies come out, then you would put a proposal in of how that can integrate with your project, or maybe it does, or maybe it doesn't. But you have to get the base started first, instead of jumping to something that hasn't come out yet. That's the gist of it. How were the stations like Jesus Ra created, and do they still exist for beings to occupy? You make it sound like it's an avatar. It's more to do. Ra is a title, like head of state, or I am the Lord. And Jesus is an archetype. What are the chances of 26 or 28 people born of a virgin, born on the 25th of December, who died and then came back to life after 3 days? 0. It's an archetype. And all it takes is people to take the messages that have been applied to Jesus, which many people like, and make that part of your life. You don't have to be called the name. It's an archetype. Are you acting in the right manner? Are you acting in integrity? Are you working for the self or others? What would Jesus do? What did he do? If you're going to use Jesus as an example. As for Ra, we don't need any more Ra's. Were they externalizations of a fragmented human psyche? No. One was a teacher archetype, the other was a control structure, egotistical freak, in my opinion. Was the cabal or the minions behind the Amazon forest and Siberian tiger burnings? I'm not too sure on that. We're covering quite a bit at the moment. And are countermeasures in place to deal with these and further such sabotage of our national resources? That's up to the people within those countries. Some of the people have no option. Many of us in the West, the person who asked the question will know because he's from the continent, don't like the idea of people shooting tigers and elephants and rhinos to make money. But if they've got nothing else to make money to feed their children, wouldn't we in the Western world do the same thing? And the key is, and that's why the Manor World Holding Trust focused heavily in Africa. Kim was dealing with Liberia, Zambia, and a whole heap of other countries about getting funds into Africa where they can create businesses that are going to make money for the people rather than shooting the tigers and shooting the elephants, etc., etc. And it's the same in the Amazon forest. If the trees are the only way to make money, what option do they have? Well, the key is to give them other options to not cut down the trees. And that's what the funds going into each country are going to be for. particularly in that region and also in Africa. We have to create industries where the African people can make enough money for food and shelter without poaching. What is the possibility of using government allocated funds to go directly to local municipalities, towns, versus just federal or states? Well, the THI groups can actually apply for funding government allocated grants, as I understand it. I don't understand it too well, but somebody had mentioned it to me. For various exercises. At the moment, all those government allocated funds are going to the likes of the Sacklers and all kinds of other rogue people who have got more than enough money. You know, Jewish museums. We've mentioned more than a few. And, you know, Clinton foundations are not doing anything for anyone. Or Red Cross. You know, maybe that's something we should look into. If we can get maybe one or two groups at a later date, maybe if a certain time goes past, where we use the People's Club to then get grants on behalf of some of the states, and we can fund some of the projects that way. But there's certain timelines to go through first. Why is Kim still working with the clowns who will never change for the benefits of the people? Because she's obligated to do so as the trustee. You know, Kim's not there to pick and choose who the trust does business with. Does she like speaking to clowns? No, nobody would. Their levels of conversation are beyond madness, putting it mildly. But like I laid out in a show, well, even the Saturday show where Kim came on at the end with Randy and Alan, what are the consequences of not doing a deal with the government and the order where we can kickstart the projects? Well, the consequences are everything collapses and then everybody suffers. You know, it's easy to make opinions and suggestions, but you're not in that hot seat where you would feel responsible for the deaths of millions of people. Sometimes people should do exercises of what it would be like to be in X person's shoes for an hour or a day. Why can't funds be used to help humanity outside the system? Well, I don't know whether this person's a new member, but we've covered it extensively as to why. If there was a way, we would have done it. Why can't everything, the personal assets of the criminal elite Rothschildians, be confiscated and lock them up, or better? Who's going to do it? You know, again, I'm not being funny here, but who is going to do that task? The US military? And I say US for a reason. US is not American. Are they going to do it? Is Putin's army going to do it? No. Original's not even alive. Oops. If people are wanting to come up with ideas, but who's going to do it? We've put out or given Mr. Trump more than any other president combined, and yet not one of those proposals has been delivered. So if the so-called leader of the free world can't do it, who else is going to do it? With all of Kim's knowledge, is it not possible to create the system that benefits humanity? She already has, and the team with her. We've already done it. Because asking the members to come up with a plan will never work. Really. So only me and Kim has to come up with a plan and nobody else, is what you're saying. And then when Kim comes up with a plan, or I come up with a plan, or we come up with a plan, people cry, where's our input into it? We've had it from all angles. What makes Kim, in your eyes, the only person to come up with a plan? Essentially what you're saying is everyone bar Kim is incapable of coming up with a plan. That's a bad indictment of humanity. And yes, there are a few making plans, including the cabal. They haven't got a plan either. You can't keep asking one or two people to do this, that and the other. That's what the state groups are for people to have their say, for people to come up with their plans and ideas. Otherwise, it looks like a dictatorship, does it not? With only one or two people. And where's Kim going to get the time to come up with the plan for 7.5 billion people, plus 39 other entities, as well as fixing the bank? Not talking to the clowns and issuing funds to help humanity outside the system, as well as removing all the Rothschilds. Do you think that's fair? I don't.